I'm Reese, a 42-year-old IT consultant who thought I'd crack the code on life until my mother-in-law decided I was disposable. One rainy Seattle morning, I was sipping coffee in the kitchen of our sprawling suburban mansion when she stormed in, her slippers slapping the hardwood like a metronome. "Reese, we need to talk," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Marcus and Lena are coming back for the baby, so you need to clear your stuff out to the yard." I nearly choked on my coffee. The yard? Was she serious? I pay $25,000 a month to keep this roof over our heads, and she's kicking me out like I'm last week's trash? Let me back up. I wasn't supposed to end up here, in a house that feels more like a battlefield than a home. Growing up in a small Oregon town, I watched my mom scrape by, raising me alone after my dad walked out. She taught me to rely on myself, to build something nobody could take away. That's why I threw myself into IT consulting, climbing from late-night coding sessions to advising CEOs on million-dollar systems. By my 40s, I had a fat savings account, a corner office, and no time for love. Relationships seemed like a gamble I wasn't willing to take, until I met Daniel. It was a random evening, after a brutal day debugging a client's server crash. I wandered into this sleek Seattle restaurant, all exposed brick and dim lighting, craving a burger and some peace. Daniel, the owner, was behind the bar, his easy smile cutting through my exhaustion. "First time here?" he asked, sliding a menu my way. I nodded, too tired to say much. "Well, you picked a good night. We've got a killer happy hour." He had this way of making you feel seen, not just another customer. I started coming back, always claiming the same corner stool. We'd talk about tech, food, the grind of running a business. Daniel was 42, like me, with 4 restaurants to his name and a passion that matched mine. He'd built his empire from a single food truck, and I admired that hustle. Those late-night chats turned into dates, then a whirlwind romance. 3 years later, we were married. No big ceremony, just us in a courthouse and a few photos in our best outfits. I didn't need the fairy tale. I just wanted him. But moving into his house? That was a curveball. It's a 4-story beast in a ritzy Seattle suburb, with a garden, 3-car garage, and a view of the Puget Sound that makes your jaw drop. The catch? Daniel's mother lived there, a 70-year-old widow, who sized me up like I was a used car she didn't trust. I didn't mind at first. I'm 42, not some starry-eyed bride. I figured I could handle her. But as I stood there, coffee cup in hand, staring at her ultimatum, I realized I'd underestimated the war I'd walked into. "Excuse me?" I said, setting my mug down. "You want me to move my stuff to the yard?" My voice was calm, but inside, I was boiling. This wasn't just about space. She'd been gunning for me since the day I moved in, her comments sharp as thorns. "You can't have kids, Reese," she went on, folding her arms. "And you don't lift a finger for Daniel's restaurants. The least you can do is make room for Marcus and his family." Marcus, Daniel's older brother, hadn't shown his face in years, but now he was coming back with his pregnant girlfriend, Lena, and I was the one who had to pay the price. I wanted to scream that I was the one keeping this house afloat, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I just laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that echoed in the too-big kitchen. I was done playing nice. Living with my mother-in-law was like walking on eggshells in a house too big for peace. The place was a dream on paper, marble counters, floor-to-ceiling windows, a backyard that could host a wedding. But every corner held a jab from her, a reminder I didn't belong. A few weeks after moving in, I was setting up my home office, a cozy room with a view of Seattle's evergreens, when she appeared in the doorway. "This house is too big for just you and Daniel," she said, her eyes scanning my books like they were intruders. "We got it for Marcus in case he came back. You're just extra." I forced a smile, shelving a book on cybersecurity. "I'm here now," I said, keeping it light. "We'll make it work." But her silence said it all. She didn't want me to. Daniel tried to smooth things over. "She's just set in her ways," he'd say, his hand on mine, his voice warm but tired. I wanted to believe him. We'd built something real, or so I thought. Back when we were dating, I'd sit at his restaurant's bar, watching him charm customers while I crunch numbers on my laptop. One night, he leaned over, curious. "What's an IT consultant do, exactly?" I explained how I streamline systems for businesses, even restaurants, like cutting costs with tablet ordering. He laughed when I showed him the price tag. "That's a small fortune for a place like mine." But he listened, soaking up every idea. That's what I loved, his hunger to learn, to grow. It matched mine. But marriage brought reality crashing in. Daniel's restaurants were bleeding money. One had already closed, and the second was on the ropes. Late one evening, I found him at the dining table, head in his hands. "Reese, I don't know if I can save it," he admitted. "Costs are up, customers are down, it's a mess." My heart sank. I'd seen my mom lose everything to bad luck and worse choices. I couldn't watch Daniel go through that. So I stepped up. "Let me help," I said, sitting across from him. I didn't tell him then, but I'd already started paying half the rent on the house, $12, $500 a month, the number that made my stomach churn. Daniel was too proud to ask for help, but I saw the weight crushing him. My mother-in-law, though, saw it differently. One night, as I washed dishes, she overheard us talking about the restaurants. "You're his wife, Reese," she called from the living room, her voice dripping with scorn. "Why aren't you at the restaurants helping? You just sit in your fancy office, doing your own thing." I froze, the sponge dripping in my hand. She wasn't wrong. I was swamped with my own clients, but her words stung. Did she think I was freeloading? I wanted to shout that I was keeping us afloat, but I bit my tongue. Daniel needed me steady, not picking fights. Still, her words planted a seed of doubt. Was I doing enough for him? For us? Then came the rumors. A co-worker at my firm, who knew one of Daniel's part-timers, mentioned seeing him with a young server, laughing too close, leaving together after shifts. I brushed it off at first. Gossip travels fast in Seattle's tight-knit food scene. But the whispers grew louder, and doubt crept in like damp rot. I'd catch Daniel on his phone, his face guarded, or he'd come home late, smelling faintly of perfume. My chest tightened each time, but I told myself I was paranoid. I'd built my life on logic, on solving problems. I could fix this, too. But deep down, I felt the ground shifting, and I wasn't sure I could hold it together much longer. The news about Marcus hit like a storm. One evening, my mother-in-law burst into the living room, her face lit up like I'd never seen. "Daniel," Marcus called, she said, ignoring me as I sat at the dining table. "Lena's pregnant. They're moving back and they need a place to stay. I told them they can have the spare rooms." My fork froze midair. Marcus, the brother Daniel hadn't seen in years, was suddenly the golden child because of a baby? Daniel glanced at me, his eyes uneasy. "Mom, we'll figure it out," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I wanted him to push back, to say this was our home, too. Instead, he just nodded and my heart sank. Marcus had always been a ghost in our lives. Daniel once told me, as we unpacked my books, how Marcus bolted after high school, chasing dreams that never panned out, band gigs, sketchy startups, odd jobs across the country. Daniel rented this oversized house hoping Marcus might return, a safety net for a brother who never stayed put. "He's family," Daniel said with a shrug, like it explained everything. I admired his loyalty, but now, with Marcus and Lena coming, it felt like a betrayal. My mother-in-law's obsession with a grandchild, she'd given up on me having kids, made her rewrite the family script, and I was the villain. The pressure built like a pressure cooker. My mother-in-law's jabs grew bolder. "You're not pulling your weight, Reese," she'd say, passing me in the hall. A real wife would be at Daniel's side, saving his business. Each word was a needle, pricking at my confidence. Meanwhile, the rumors about Daniel's affair gnawed at me. A part-timer at his restaurant sent me a text one night, a blurry photo of Daniel and a young woman heading toward a hotel in Capitol Hill. My stomach churned, but I couldn't confront him yet. I needed proof, a plan, something to hold on to. One morning, after a sleepless night, I woke to find Daniel already gone to work. The house was quiet except for my mother-in-law's voice, sharp and smug, from the living room. "Reese, you heard me and Daniel yesterday, right? Marcus and Lena need space for the baby." Move your stuff to the yard. I stood frozen in the kitchen, my coffee cold in my hands. The yard? She wasn't just sidelining me. She was erasing me. You don't help Daniel, and you can't give us a family, she said, her eyes cold. Make room for people who matter. The words hit like a slap. I'd been paying the full $25,000 rent for months now, ever since Daniel's restaurants tanked. I'd poured my savings, $500,000, into saving his second location, and she called me useless? I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that startled even me. I'm done, I said, more to myself than her. The weight of her hatred, Daniel's betrayal, and Marcus's invasion crashed over me. I couldn't fix this house, this marriage, this family. I'll leave, I told her, my voice steady despite the storm inside. But I'm not dumping my stuff in the yard. I'll come back for it. She nodded, smug, like she'd won. I packed a suitcase, called a liquidation service to handle my things, and walked out. 7 seconds after the door shut behind me, I was on the phone, arranging a hotel. My mind was clear for the first time in months. No one was going to stop me now. 3 weeks later, I was settled in a sleek downtown Seattle apartment, the city's skyline a reminder I could start over. I hadn't spoken to Daniel since I left, and I didn't plan to. He probably thought I'd crawl back, tail between my legs, but he didn't know me at all. That morning, my phone buzzed with his name. Reese, what's going on?
His voice was panicked.
The restaurant's empty. Fridges, tables, everything's gone. I couldn't help but smirk.
We need to talk, I said.
I'm coming to the house. Bring your mom. I hung up, still chuckling. This was going to be good. When I walked into the house, my mother-in-law was already yelling. What have you done, Reese? The restaurant's gutted. You think you can get away with this? Marcus and Lena stood awkwardly in the corner, looking like they'd wandered into a war zone. Daniel's face was pale, his eyes darting between me and his mother. I set my bag down, calm as a summer lake. It's my restaurant, I said. I started the closing process. No issue there, right? My mother-in-law's jaw dropped. Your restaurant, she sputtered. Daniel, what's she talking about? I let Daniel squirm for a moment before stepping in. Let me explain, I said, pulling out a folder of documents. When Daniel's second restaurant was tanking, I lent him $500,000, my savings from years of grinding in IT. But I didn't just hand it over. I bought the rights to the branch. I'm the owner. I spread the papers on the table, business license, transfer agreements, all with my name. My mother-in-law's face flushed red as she read them. You never said anything, she stammered. Why hide it? Because you made it impossible, I shot back. You called me a failure, said I wasn't a real wife because I didn't slave away in Daniel's kitchens.
But I saved that restaurant.
New tables, new equipment, a whole menu overhaul, all on my dime. And Daniel? I turned to him, my voice steady but sharp. You repaid me by sneaking off with some part-timer. I slid my phone across the table, a photo glowing on the screen. Daniel and a woman, arm in arm, heading into a hotel. A part-timer had sent it to me, fed up with his behavior. The room went silent, the air thick with shock. Daniel's hands shook as he picked up the divorce papers I placed next to the photo. Reese, this isn't what it looks like, he stammered. It's a rumor, a mistake. I laughed, cold and final. The part-timers didn't think so. They helped me close the restaurant, kept it quiet from you. They're taken care of, new jobs lined up through my contacts.
But you?
You're on your own. My mother-in-law tried to interrupt, her voice shrill, but I cut her off. And the rent? That $25,000 a month? That was me too. All of it, when Daniel's restaurants couldn't cover it. You didn't know that either, did you? The truth landed like a punch. Marcus and Lena exchanged nervous glances, realizing their free ride was crumbling. Daniel's shoulders slumped, his mother's face a mix of rage and disbelief. I'd held this family together, financially, silently, while they tore me apart. Now they'd face the consequences. I picked up my bag, my heart pounding with a mix of pain and triumph. I'm done here, I said and walked out, leaving them to their chaos. After I walked out, the pieces fell where they may. The divorce went through smoothly. Daniel's affair made it airtight, and I didn't want a cent of alimony. I'd built my life on my own terms, and I wasn't about to tether myself to him for scraps. With the restaurant closed, I sold off the equipment, fridges, tables, the works at a solid price. It wasn't just about recouping my $500,000. It was about closing a chapter. The process was a headache, paperwork piling up like Seattle rain clouds, but it felt good to tie up loose ends. I poured that energy back into my IT consulting, landing a big contract with a tech startup downtown. Work was my anchor, always had been. Daniel and his mother couldn't keep up with the house's rent without me. They moved to a cramped apartment in a less flashy part of Seattle, where the walls seemed to close in on their strange silences. Daniel tried to lean on Marcus, arguing it was his turn to care for their mom. But Marcus, true to form, had no money and no plan. He and Lena vanished again, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and a baby on the way. The brothers' fight over their mother's care turned ugly, words cutting deeper than knives. Last I heard, Daniel and his mom were stuck together, barely speaking, their resentment filling the small space they shared. I didn't wish them ill, but I didn't lose sleep over it either. For me, life got clearer. I'd spent years building walls to protect myself, only letting them down for Daniel. That was my mistake, but it taught me something. I'm stronger alone. My apartment's nothing like that mansion. No garden, no view, but it's mine. I wake up to the hum of the city, my coffee maker, my rules. Every project I take on feels like a step towards something bigger, something I control. I'm not saying I'll never love again, but it'll take someone extraordinary to match my fire. For now, I'm enough. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, battles, and the moment I took back my life. If my story hit you, whether it sparked anger, tears, or a spark of your own strength, hit that subscribe button and join us. Every choice we make, every stand we take, is a story of hunger, heart, and starting over. Keep carving your own path, and I'll meet you at the finish line.